Star Citizen's campaign, Squadron 42, has hit a major milestone, and it looks both ambitious and impressive. It hosts a cast as deep as a blockbuster movie, and it showcases major graphical improvements over its earlier appearances. The premise of the game and what it entails is more than ambitious, it is quite enormous. It was originally announced with Star Citizen roughly 11 years ago, and there was even a time where there was people concerned that it had been canceled. But it is now feature complete, and it is entering into its, quote, polished phase. This would mean that the game could land with a release date in 2024. Now, I put all the good information here at the beginning, so you don't have to go looking for it. This is a live environment, so you may be watching the past broadcast. That's why the video is so long. If you like this kind of content and live discussion, hit subscribe and the bell button so you don't miss my content. So a standalone campaign for Star Citizen that was once thought to be canceled has entered into its final phase. The excitement or interest around Star Citizen has been a mixed bag over the years. Some speculate that the game will never come out of alpha or beta. Others go farther than that. They accuse the game of being a scam. Others basically think that this game will never really be a full thing. And some have spent a meager amount to large sums of money to support the game or play in it or have items inside of the world. So Star Citizen is currently at this moment in alpha, and it does look to be a revolutionary ongoing space trading and combat game, and their choice to do a campaign as a standalone might actually be a stroke of genius. So first, I want to talk about what we know about Squadron 42. What's the premise? What is its connection to Star Citizen? Then secondly, I want to consider if this could be sort of a live service secret sauce. Since Star Citizen wants to be a successful and ambitious ongoing game, could having a complete package standalone campaign be sort of a 900 IQ play? Lastly, I want to ask the question, what does this mean for Star Citizen? The money spent on the cast alone for Squadron 42 must be incredibly high, and commercial success could put pressure on Star Citizen in a variety of ways. So first, what do we know? So what is Squadron 42? Is it Star Citizen? Is it Star Citizen Lite? And what is the premise of the game? Does it have any connection to Star Citizen as a whole? And given the size of the cast and the campaign, who all is actually in this game? It sort of looks like a movie. I wanted to give you a quick rundown of everything we know about this game since it just hit a major milestone. They dropped a 26-minute video on their official YouTube channel entitled Squadron 42, I Held the Line. Alongside great gameplay and stunning visuals, they announced that Squadron 42 is feature complete and entering its polish phase. So what is this game? So we're going to pull from PC Gamer to kind of give you brief descriptions and information about what this game is, how there's going to be more of them, and what can you expect from the actual content loop itself. So according to PC Gamer, Squadron 42 is a standalone single-player campaign in the Star Citizen universe, and it's fully playable offline. Now, this is important to stress from the outset. This is not an online game. This is not a multiplayer game like Star Citizen, so gamers who want a great offline single-player game may potentially take notice of this installment. The other thing worthy of note is that they plan for this to be a trilogy. From PC Gamer, it was announced as an episodic trilogy, which many people seem to have forgotten, and each episode will be a fully fledged game in its own right. CIG, that is Cloud Imperium Games, they are working on episode 1, simply Squadron 42, work on episode 2, which is called Behind Enemy Lines, and an unnamed episode 3 has already begun. So they've already begun working on episode 2 and 3, a trilogy of games here. So they're planning what seems to be a long tail plan for this game, and it is tied to the Star Citizen universe. In terms of the Star Citizen timeline, episode 1 is before the events of the main game, and you'll see in some of the footage some faces you might recognize as I bounce between B-roll, actually the trailer, and there is Gillian Anderson. That got my attention very quickly as somebody who grew up with X-Files. I was like, oh my gosh, Dana Scully's involved. So there is a very, very deep cast in this game. Now, they have yet to reveal where episodes 2 and 3 land chronologically. As far as length of the game, another thing gamers are celebrating lately is consumable games, consumable campaigns, okay? This could be another one of those times. According to PC Gamer article, Squadron 42 will take place across 28 chapters. Back in 2015, when it was planned to be 21 chapters long, head of CIG Chris Roberts said it would take around 20 hours to complete, which is still the latest estimate that we have. So we're looking at roughly, 20 hours to complete. This is the first game in a trilogy that they have planned. So if the pattern holds, all 3 games would equal roughly 60 hours or more, if the other games hit the same size. Now, I think that sounds great for a trilogy if that's how they decide to package this. Now, judging by internal decisions with respect to bandwidth, it does seem this game is getting more priority. More from the article. Squadron 42 was initially being developed by Foundry 42, a studio within CIG led by Chris Roberts' brother Aaron, who also worked on the original Wing Commander. However, last year, Foundry 42 rebranded, essentially bringing it under the wider Cloud Imperium banner, and Squadron 42 is now being developed by multiple CIG studios. And you can see in this video, they actually speak and answer and speak on some things and where they are, and you get a glimpse in the studio. So that actually, I think, is pretty cool that they're increasing bandwidth. More people are working on it. They must have seen a lot of potential in this game. Now, before we get to how it is tied to Star Citizen, it would be nice to know what is the premise of this game. In Squadron 42, from the article, you play a new recruit in the United Empire of Earth Navy, an elite military unit fighting to protect humanity against both aliens and bandits. And this is what some of the space combat looks like here. So a pretty straightforward premise. It's sort of the classic new recruit tasked with helping to save or protect humanity. I think that's fine to have a very straightforward premise. It's more about the gameplay and the characters and the story building on that premise and that idea. So what exact gameplay can we expect? Well, you're seeing some of it here. And according to the article, you'll live aboard a massive capital ship, and from there you'll be dispatched to various missions, which will take place both in the cockpit of various customizable spaceships and on foot. Expect a mixture of large-scale space battles and first-person shooting, and some missions will have multiple paths to their conclusions. And they did say expect a 50-50 split between the two. So, being in a space battle, being on the ground, running around, shooting, etc. Now, some might be turned off by the 50-50 split between space battles and on-foot missions, but I think a game like this sort of needs to carve out space for both types of gameplay. I don't think you can necessarily just always be on the ground or always in space. If you want to have a game that's sort of bridging the gap between you're traveling through space, you're living on a spaceship, and then you're going and doing missions, I do think you need to have that mixture. So I'm not too sure if people are going to like that or embrace that. I think more and more people are now open to games that do both. With the success of No Man's Sky and Starfield, I would imagine more people are open to games that let you do both. Now, another major question that I had was, how is this connected to Star Citizen, right? Because that's the question, is this connected to Star Citizen in any way? According to the article, you can think of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen for the most part as separate entities. You do not have to own one to play the other, and they are both fully priced games. However, some of the actions that you take in Squadron 42 will cross over to Star Citizen should you choose to make the jump. Now, I really like this concept, separate but potentially connected if you decide to come over. I think that's a great way to handle this, and what you do in Squadron 42 will actually impact the experience you have if you ever do go over to Star Citizen. From the article, it says, certain decisions will, for example, open up vendors in the persistent universe. CIG has also previously suggested that completing Squadron 42 will grant you citizenship in the persistent universe, which has a few perks such as lower tax rates. So the connection's completely optional, and it sounds like you can enjoy a completely contained experience in Squadron 42. too. It's not like, well, yeah, you do this, but then you really want to go play Star Citizen. You can totally play this and just enjoy it on its own. And last but certainly not least, the cast for this game is like something I have never seen before for a video game. It's like if you've ever watched a Wes Anderson movie and there's all these cameos of all these different people, this feels kind of like that. It's like a very, very deep cast. From the article, CIG has opened its rather large wallet and secured plenty of big-name actors such as Gary Oldman, who plays Navy Admiral Ernst Bishop, Gillian Anderson, who plays Ship Captain Rachel McLaren, and Mark Hamill, who plays Flying Instructor Steve Old Man Colton. I wonder if Mark actually has to be called Old Man. He looks great in the game, by the way. I will try to find footage of him for the live audience. I'm just kind of letting this roll from where it is. Beyond that, you've got Mark Strong, Liam Cunningham, Ben Mendelsohn, John Rhys Davies, and Andy Serkis. They will all make appearances. Again, it feels like a blockbuster movie. It's like, oh my word, there's all these people in this game, and they did such a great job capturing what they look like and how their face moves. It's really, really impressive work. Now, I was most excited when I saw Gary Oldman and Gillian Anderson, but the cast is deep. It's likely, from where I sit, a sign of long-term investment if they plan to continue the theme of having characters like this in the second or third games. So, that's it. That's everything we know about Squadron 42. I would estimate, again, that with it being feature complete and entering its polish phase, the only disappointing thing about this is it's only going to be on PC. If you're looking at the graphics and the performance of this game, I do think this game would potentially struggle on consoles. So this is likely going to be a PC-only game, and it's probably going to require a top-of-the-line PC or at least a mid-lane PC. The minimum requirements for this game might be pretty challenging. We'll obviously have to wait and see where that lands. Now, they may say, oh, here's minimum spec, but you always have to kind of wait for the tech test to come out, like how well does it run on the weakest hardware that they're suggesting or saying will work. So even though it's only landing on PC, it is likely not coming until later 2024. So whether you're a fan of Star Citizen or not, from where I sit, this is a game to pay attention to because they are seemingly putting a lot of work into just the campaign. We can set aside the debates. We can set aside the discussions about whether or not Star Citizen is a scam, whether or not you should play Star Citizen. This looks like something where you're going to buy it. It's going to be a complete transaction. You're going to get a complete story of, again, approximately 20 hours in length. And then there's plans to do a second and third story as well. So you're sort of buying in at the ground level, but instead of sort of buying in as a founder or a Kickstarter for an ongoing game where you're waiting for updates and patches, this sounds to me like they're going to ship this like a more traditional game where it's like, okay, it's feature complete, it's now polished, you guys can buy it if you want. So as I said, whether you are a fan of Star Citizen or not, this is definitely one game to pay attention to. But I said in the beginning of this video that, you know, I think that they have like a secret sauce here for live service. What do I mean by that? Is Star Citizen tapping into a brilliant strategy for live service games with their standalone single-player game, Squadron 42? The long-standing debate about live service centers around the consistent problems that we have seen as gamers. A lack of longevity and proper planning leads games to burn out quickly, or quick player exodus happens when the content runs dry, or the gameplay loop gets old. Many believe that live service games are a bit of a fool's errand. The explosion of Fortnite and long-running success stories of games like Destiny have many developers and publishers wanting to figure out the recipe, the secret sauce, or the best approach to a live service game. Well, the devs behind Star Citizen are giving you a completely different inroad to their universe. Squadron 42 as a standalone single-player offline game could be a stroke of genius. And with Squadron 42 hitting a big milestone, it is now feature complete, they're entering polish phase, we could be soon finding out if this does work as a strategy of getting people into your ongoing game. So just to summarize, a highly curated, roughly 20-hour campaign will likely launch sometime in 2024 under the name Squadron 42. And that is essentially what I'm arguing, is this is part of a planned trilogy. This is something else that they have said, a trilogy of games, and they've entered their sort of level of production. Those are already sort of starting, so they have a long plan here. Now, with a stout cast of people like Gary Oldman and Gillian Anderson, it could bring in a ton of new players. And then, If you decide to jump into Star Citizen, the ongoing space game, it is still in alpha. Well, what you did in Squadron 42, it will come with you to a certain degree. And I believe this could be the perfect answer to one of the main criticisms we have seen about live service games. The successful live service games of today slowly became what they are. They didn't launch out of the box with all of the player input, all of the feedback. They didn't have a loyal fan base yet. And they also slowly grew that loyal fan base who is now supporting the game with regular patronage or regular engagement. Now, in light of this reality, this thing that we've seen many, many times with live service games, I have recently been advocating for more games to mimic what we saw Larian Studios do with Baldur's Gate 3. Now, yes, Baldur's Gate 3 is not a live service game, but the early access period really served the game incredibly well. The game has had great commercial success and a player base that has poured hundreds of hours on average into the game. So if you sort of mash these two concepts together, that launching a live service game is difficult because you don't have an audience yet, and early access could be a great way to grow and curate a successful live service game, well, in walks Star Citizen. An already in early access alpha game, it now offers a wonderful onboarding experience, potentially a wonderful onboarding experience. A very consumable, impressive-looking 20-hour campaign with a Hollywood-level cast. Imagine playing a complete story that you slowly build a character with, and then you suddenly have the option to take that character into an ongoing game. Or you could say, look, I'm going to completely avoid that. I enjoyed my story. I'm going to enjoy the future stories, but I'm kind of done. Essentially what you do is you create tethers and loyalty and investment without the stress and the need to play another live service or ongoing game. It could be incredibly effective and disarming. The stigma around live service games continues to grow, and one obvious problem is that gamers only have so much time for so many games. Well, the fact that they're doing 3 games in addition, like Squadron 42 will be a part of 3 total games. Games 2 and 3 could serve as nice touch points to get you to come back. And the best part about this approach is you can completely avoid the ongoing game and just enjoy good single-player campaigns. But from where I sit, the 2 major challenges of, listen, you can't just start a live service game, you have to grow one, and the other challenge of, listen, the early access feels almost needed to get a game to where it should be. Well, both of these have their answer in Star Citizen and the Squadron 42 approach. Only time will tell, but for now, I am both interested in the game and interested to see if the strategy pays off. Now, lastly, what does this mean for Star Citizen? Okay, Star Citizen has been around for a long, long time. People criticize it. People call it a scam. People don't know if it's real. What does Squadron 42 mean sort of for Star Citizen? Will the standalone single-player game Squadron 42 hitting a milestone and a potential commercial success of this ambitious title, will that put pressure on Star Citizen to leave alpha and fully launch? With Squadron 42 being the first of a trilogy of single-player games, could the enormous budgets of games with movie star-studded casts, could it take away from Star Citizen? I already think they're on what could be a golden strategy for live service by separating the main campaign into a standalone experience with the option of connecting the two, but considering the level of graphical updates we've seen in their latest video, Squadron 42, I Held the Line, that's the title of the video, we're also hearing that those graphical updates and polishes will be coming to Star Citizen as well. But one of the ongoing criticisms of Star Citizen is that it will never launch. And my initial thought is this: Squadron 42 makes that concern die down a bit. The investment into this standalone game sends a loud and clear message. They are committed to this game franchise and universe. Imagine they have like Baldur's Gate 3 level of success. You get close to 1 million concurrent players when Squadron 42 launches. That's a lot of potential Star Citizen players and customers. So, as I said from the outset, the commercial success of Squadron 42 could add pressure to Star Citizen. I could honestly see a Star Citizen official release landing in conjunction with the single-player games, which is where I would love to see an interconnectedness between the games. Let's say I play Squadron 42, and then I take my character into Star Citizen. Well, when the second campaign comes out, Episode 2, it's called Behind Enemy Lines, would I be able to take my character into that? Sort of like, okay, I'm in Star Citizen having a great time. Can I go then play behind enemy lines with that character? This would enable them to do more of a classic live service format where the regular releases of these campaigns would almost feel like massive, huge DLCs. And instead of full game launches, instead of DLC, they're full game launches with like 20-hour campaigns. There's also a bit of an unknown when it comes to a legal battle with Crytek. According to PC Gamer, it's a long story, but the short version is Crytek brought a lawsuit against CIG for using Crytek's engine, CryEngine, and part of the lawsuit hinges on the fact that CIG allegedly used CryEngine for 2 games, Star Citizen and Squadron 42, instead of the agreed one. Crytek has requested to withdraw the lawsuit and says it will refile when Squadron 42 is released. CIG disputes the original claims, has called Crytek's action attention-seeking, and is demanding Crytek pay some of its legal fees. For the moment, there are plenty of unknowns. So Squadron 42's launch has a lot riding on it, right? Even from Crytek's perspective, this could be a make-or-break moment for them. They could actually, hey, now it's time for our lawsuit to hit. But the 2 main things I constantly hear about Star Citizen is that it will never launch and that it is a scam. Many people look at how long the game has been in alpha, how much money they have taken, I believe over like $600 million from the community. We spoke to somebody from the community yesterday who has spent $1,500 across many, many years. This isn't just like in a year's time, but has spent a lot of money in the game, and more than money, has spent a lot of time. And if you speak to anybody who's playing Star Citizen, they seem to really be enjoying themselves, and they don't really feel like they've wasted their time or their money. And when I look at Squadron 42, I think, okay, that would at least enable me to get into the universe. Do I care about my character? Do I care about the characters and the stories and the elements of the game that you're sort of trying to onboard me with? And then if enough people do that, will that then be a situation where they feel like Star Citizen now needs to launch? With the 3 games coming out, maybe the 3rd game, is sort of it's a push for Star Citizen to finally fully release in conjunction with the culmination of the 3 chapters of this story that they want to tell. From my perspective, this is the first time I've been genuinely interested in Star Citizen. It's a daunting task to suddenly try to jump in to a game like this. You can sort of feel disconnected. You sort of feel like you're behind. There's so many systems. There's so many worlds. You can go look at their roadmap for development. There's lots of things that they have updated, changed, reverted, removed. Those are things that are going to be, I don't have any clue about. Well, Squadron 42 could serve as a great entrance point for people like me, even if it doesn't pull me into the larger and the ongoing game of Star Citizen. Much like Star Citizen, if Squadron 42 is good, the promise is, well, there's more where that came from. So let me give you my thoughts and my conclusions on this. Squadron 42 is shaping up to be a solid piece of content from what I can tell. As someone who has always felt very daunted by getting into Star Citizen, Squadron 42 has my full attention. The tie-ins with Star Citizen honestly grabbed my attention as much as the trailer with the star-studded cast and, Gillian Anderson, Gary Oldman. I was kind of shocked to see that many people in the game. Having an inroad to such a massive game, I think, is intriguing. I don't think I've ever seen a live service game that says, you don't need to come play our live service game. You can just play our campaign instead. And then if you want to come over here, you can. The second thing I want to say is this. Star Citizen as a game and a concept is certainly a divisive one. Some claim that after over 10 years of development, still being in alpha after receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from supporters, that the game is a scam. Knowing what we know about dev costs and project length, a game of this size and ambition, I'm not surprised we don't have a fully released product yet. In my estimation, this is a glimpse into why so many games launch incomplete and buggy. I don't have a strong opinion on whether or not the game is a scam, but I think it's a shining light on how big, ambitious, super games cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. My conclusion is this. Star Citizen feels like a game that will be forever debated. Like No Man's Sky before it, there are those who are going to celebrate the progress and the updates, and those who call foul and hold a grudge. From where I sit, Squadron 42 could set the stage for a proper launch runway for Star Citizen, or at the very least create a new concept for live service or ongoing games. But for now, much like everybody else looking for the official Star Citizen release date. Well, we have to wait. And that's the show open. Thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure and smash the like button. First 100 likes have already come through. It looks like I already have some gifted members to thank. Thank you so much. I'm going to assume that is Alex. It is Alex. We also have some member renewals to thank. Eddie Rodriguez renewed his membership, 6-month renewal. Hit the like button. The Slickness renewed their membership for 12 months. Pierce Taylor with a $2 super chat tip. And Alex, Han shot first, and so did you. Thank you so much. Let's update the daily goal, the first 5. Not a bad tee-up for somebody to drop a 20 bomb, or we can work our way to 25 the good old-fashioned way. Yo, Lono, have you seen the Star Engine demo shown at CitizenCon? I've seen clips here and there, yes. I think the biggest takeaway I got from the Squadron 42 I Held the Line trailer, like my biggest takeaway was the graphical updates. They go through like a section where they show people like sitting around talking. And I'm like, geez, like they put a lot of work into this game. It almost looks like a completely different game at certain points. It looks like, if you've ever seen when they do like side-by-sides of like a remaster or a remake, it almost looks like that. It's like, holy moly, they really added a lot of detail and lighting. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. I think the average PC is going to struggle to run this game. I really do. The floor of performance for this game is going to be pretty high, I would imagine. Catwalk with 8 months into VIP, thank you. Paul says, was Baldur's Gate 3 a scam? I think the difference is the time, but I also think the difference is the game type. You know, Baldur's Gate 3 was in, early access for 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. This has been in alpha, and people have been paying and trying to support the development of it for over 10 years. I think that's where people get frustrated. Yeah, this is an Into the AM shirt. If you guys like the shirts I've been wearing, I've been working my way through my entire Into the AM collection. So use code LONO or go to intotheam.com/LONO. Ederlop hits another gifted member. Thank you so much, taking us to 6 on the day. You guys are at 2,300 members. You hit 2,500. The next goal is 2,750. 2,750 will be community game night, and we'll all play a game together on a Friday night. It'll be amazing. Severin Everett says, what is Squadron 42? So Squadron 42 is a completely standalone 20-hour, roughly, maybe a little bit more. It sounds like it may have gotten bigger since the last time they said 20 hours. We'll just say around 20 hours. A completely standalone single-player campaign in the Star Citizen universe. And they have hit a huge milestone of being feature complete, and they're entering polish phase. I imagine this means it's launching like late next year. Right now, with their work, ethic and their commitments to quality, maybe not, but in my mind, it's like, oh, you're entering polish phase. Okay, that's probably like about a year long, I would think. And so they released this trailer a day ago called I Held the Line. And the game has this massive, massive star-studded cast. You've got Gillian Anderson, you've got Gary Oldman, you've got Mark Hamill, you've got, the guy from Game of Thrones who also plays Theoden King in Lord of the Rings. You got a lot of people. It's kind of unbelievable how many people are in this game. How do they fund Squadron 42? Was it separate from the Star Citizen funding? Well, here's the thing. Originally, when they announced Star Citizen, Squadron 42 was a part of that announcement. So when you were funding Star Citizen, you were funding this, and you knew you were funding it because it was a part of the announcement. A couple of years ago, this is again, I may not have the exact timeline right, but it's my understanding that a couple of years ago, they broke this off on its own because it just got too big. No, it's not Sean Bean. It just got too big. So you have been funding Squadron 42 even if you've been funding Star Citizen. And they let people know this a couple of years ago. Now, somebody might push back and say, now, wait a minute. I've been funding Squadron 42 and now you're going to sell it separately. That feels like kind of like a raw deal. I don't have a strong opinion on that. I think when people fund projects like this, it's right there in the terms and conditions. At any point in time, they could decide to change or jettison or cancel or delete something. Like when you're kickstarting something, you just kind of know that's a risk that you're taking. You're not potentially paying for something that'll look exactly the same in a couple of years. I don't feel like they have been hiding anything. You go to their website and it's like the dev roadmap is incredibly detailed. You know everything that's coming, everything they're working on, and the estimated timeline of completion. Victor with 30 months and a VIP. Never played Star Citizen. I think labeling it a scam is a bit much. People have been playing and having fun. I look at it as a subscription game. Whether it ever gets finished doesn't diminish their enjoyment. Liam Cunningham wasn't in Lord of the Rings. I didn't say Liam Cunningham. I said there's a guy from Game of Thrones who also plays Theoden. Bernard Hill. Yeah. He's in the game. He's in the game. I didn't say Liam. I listed Liam. Did I not? Oh no, it's not Theoden King. You guys told me that yesterday. Yeah, you guys were incorrect about that. The guy that plays Theoden is a completely different actor, isn't he? From he's not in Game of Thrones. Somebody acted like he was wait a minute. No, you guys had it backwards yesterday. Somebody told me that yesterday and I was like, "Oh, really? That's him?" So, different actor. My apologies. Yeah, it's Sir Davos or whatever. I didn't watch Game of Thrones. So somebody told me yesterday that was the guy who played Theoden and I was like, "No way, that's him?" So, that's wrong. When you go to different planets, you better have enough fuel to get there. Squadron 42 alone is worth the money for the ships I own, and when Star Citizen goes live, I'll be happy. Isn't Star Citizen the game they use to launder money? Who has ever... I've never seen that claimed anywhere. How would they be using a Kickstarter to launder money? How? Yeah, I think people thought Liam Cunningham was Bernard Hill yesterday when they saw that. They were like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy that plays Theoden." It's like, no, they're different guys. Yeah, the cast is still crazy. You didn't watch Game of Thrones? No, I didn't. My wife would have hated it. So if my wife doesn't like it, I don't have time for shows just whenever. I watch maybe a show a night with her. So it's like that's my window of time to watch something. So if she's not going to like it, we don't watch it. So Star Citizen, been in bet since 2012, a whole decade. They did separate it a couple of years ago so anyone can get it separately without having to back the MMO. But anyone who got a game package for Star Citizen gets Squadron included. Oh, well, there you go. That answers that. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, if you have any of that level of that game package of Star Citizen, well, you're going to get Squadron 42. Yeah, there's Gillian Anderson. They do such a good job with the facial animations in this. It's pretty remarkable. Like... really, really good job. Like the way that they move their eyes and blink, like they've really done an excellent job. I do what my wife does. I mean, I actually enjoy a show more when I know she's enjoying it. So sitting and watching a show and she's like bored to tears, that's not any fun for me. I'm like, I don't know if you're like this. I'm like this. If somebody's not having a good time, I have a hard time having a good time. Like if you're at a concert or a venue and somebody's just like bored or irritated or they don't want to be there, it actually affects my enjoyment. It's like, I don't want anybody having a bad time. So let's just watch something else. Like I'll have a better time watching a different show knowing that she enjoy it more. Some people that gave their hard-earned money to this game might be dead now. It's been 10 years. I certainly empathize with anybody who's like, on their deathbed, like, I didn't get to play Star Citizen. Like, I feel bad for anybody that, that funded the game and's not getting to play the launch version, like the actual release version. But again, what you're getting into when you kickstart a project like this. You know that it might not ever even launch. You know that they might make drastic changes to the project. The only thing I noticed from the footage is that there's something going on with the space combat with, I'm not quite sure what it is. the performance looks kind of weird. The lasers don't look like they're actually traveling, and the frames. I don't know. I think they might be having issues with this aspect of the game. This is the only time during the Squadron 42 trailer I was like, that looks kind of cheeks. Like, everything else looks fantastic, but some of this stuff is, looking like it needs a little polish on the performance side of things. I'm sure they knew that was possible. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine going to somebody's eulogy and they're like, Dave was a great guy. He always showed up for his shifts on time, and his greatest regret is giving money to Star Citizen. People are like drying their eyes. They're like, what's Star Citizen? Imagine people dying are more concerned with the dying than the Kickstarter they backed. Yeah, their life's over, They're not like, well, I wish I had that $150 back that I spent on that game. The space combat was weird in the demo. Also, you can tell that it's a dev using a mouse and keyboard. Yeah, this to me, now this is the most interesting part about this is not the debate about Star Citizen being a scam. To me, the most interesting thing about this is, what if this is a formula for how to do live service the way that I've continued to advocate? I'm like, launch your live service game in early access. Just build like the first area, just build the first act. Because people are going to be like, yes, this is good, and then these other things are terrible. And you're like, I'm glad that we know this. 75% of the people that played our game indicated that these things over here are terrible. Let's make drastic changes, because all of this will influence the foundation of the game. Like, everything we build on this is going to impact the foundation of the game. So Star Citizen is taking an approach that is longer tail than what we saw with Baldur's Gate, right? This thing's been in alpha for, a decade. Roughly. It's been in alpha for a really long time. When did the first official alpha launch? I actually should have looked that up, sorry. But that's just generally the headlines that we're seeing from people. It's been in alpha for close to a decade. When's the game going to launch? It's a scam. This, again, to me, feels like a 900 IQ play for the live service game. Is that you build a completely separate, standalone game that has your campaign, your dialogue, all of your investment. I said this yesterday when we were talking about this. We were breaking this down in the writer's room. If you're at a member plus or higher, the final segment every day is called the writer's room, and you can help us plan the next day's show. And we were kind of talking about this. And I said, imagine getting to the end of just an amazing experience, an amazing campaign. You get to the end of Mass Effect 3. And they're like, yeah, that was a great story. I made all these amazing decisions. Maybe you went heavy on Renegade or whatever. And then when it's over, you have the option to then take that character that you've grown to love, and you've made all these choices, and you're like, yeah, now you can take your character over here into an ongoing experience if you'd like. Now, many people would say, I'm not interested in live service. I think live service is terrible. I think live service is the devil. It's like, okay, fine. You enjoyed an amazing experience. 20-hour campaign, great cutscenes, dialogue, cast, great experiences, shootouts, all these different things. And you can then just put it down and walk away. This is something that we've been celebrating recently, right? Assassin's Creed Mirage, there have been a lot of people defending that you can platinum Spider-Man 2 faster than a lot of other games, because it's like, why do we need to make platinuming a game this life commitment? And so we've been celebrating that. Well, what if that's the ticket for live service? It's like, you have one team that's just, this is what they're good at. They're good at building curated, really good single-player experiences, campaign. And then you have the people that are more focused on the content loop. They're more focused on player incentivizations and content rhythms and getting people to come back to a game over and over again. Well, you kind of separate those teams, And then you can just come and play this campaign. You can enjoy it, have a great experience, and you can walk away and be like, I got my money's worth. You know, that was a great story. That was a great campaign. As opposed to feeling like with a live service game, you almost feel like from moment one, you're having to be committed. You're like, I've got to be a part of this. I have got to be plugging away, grinding, putting in the hours. And it's like this intermingled experience where there's a little bit of story, there's a little bit of live service. It's like this weird hybrid experience, and you're just like, I don't really know. You know, do I love the game enough to keep playing? Do I love the game enough to keep going? Well, a great way to foster somebody enjoying and loving a game is through a great campaign. And let's say they decide at the end, they're like, no, I don't have any interest in live service. I had a good time. I can't wait for episode 2. Because Squadron 42 is episode 1 and a 3-episode story that they're planning on telling. Episode 2 is called Behind Enemy Lines. Episode 3 has not been named yet. And these things, what happens in Squadron 42 takes place, I believe, prior to the events in Star Citizen. So this is basically your prequel way to get in. I'm not sure if I found another downside to live service, but is Sea of Thieves the possible reason we haven't gotten any other big rare titles? Is that taking up most of their resources? Yeah, the question would be, Russell, how many people have they siphoned off for Everwild? Because we know Everwild at some level is getting attention. We don't know if Everwild's getting attention to do... You know, are they in pre-planning? Are they in production? We know they allegedly lost their creative director. So I hear what you're saying. You're like, if you've got a great development team, you know, a gifted team, and they're busy working on some live service game, they're doing that instead of building us another great game. And I get why that frustrates people, because they think, man, we could be getting such a better game. It's kind of like the remake remaster debate, right? It's like, well, why are you making another remake remaster cash grab? You could have given us a new game. You could have given us something, you know, brand new and exciting instead of working on a live service game. I guess my question typically is, if that's what the developers have determined they want to work on, well then, like, who really cares? You wouldn't want them forced or half-heartedly working on some single-player project. And vice versa, right? It goes both ways. We don't want developers being forced to build live service games if that's not what they want to build. I mean, we saw that in the report on Redfall. They were like, we don't really want to build this game. And ZeniMax is like, no, man, multiplayer is the way to go. Let's do a multiplayer game. And the developers were sort of thinking, we're not even confident that we can do that. You typically need more bandwidth to do a multiplayer game. So I think it cuts both ways. Like, if a company wants to build a live service game, like, then let them build it and then just decide, like, I don't want anything to do with that. And if a company wants to build a single player game, same difference. That's why I feel like Squadron 42 and Star Citizen is like this happy middle ground of the people that have no interest in live service can play a game that's got people like this in it. You've got, you know, big name actors and really great cutscenes. This almost feels like a TV show, you know? And then you're getting to experience that campaign and story and then put it down when you're done. You know, I feel like we're in this transitional period as gamers where smaller, more consumable games are being celebrated, and the big, really overstuffed, bloated games are being sort of, you know, scrutinized or looked back on like, do we really need to do that? You know, I got to let you guys see this part. There's our man. There's our boy, Mark Hamill. He's in this. That's exciting. They show in a little bit too a lot of the graphical updates that they've done as well. Yeah, right here. Look at the before and afters here. Watch her. It's like a different game. Like, just unbelievable the level of change there in what the graphics look like. I think they do a couple more. Okay, these are side by sides. It's really, really impressive. So, you know, again, I'm wondering what the min specs are going to be on Squadron 42. You know, what kind of a system are you going to need to run this game? Alpha, buggy, and not optimized. However, it's an incredibly complicated project, and no other company wants to attempt it other than CIG. Alpha is like a new live service. It happens with a lot of survival games. They stay in alpha forever, and they always make money. Well, okay, yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Star Citizen and alpha. That feels like more of like what you guys are focusing on, and that's totally fine, because I'm open to being persuaded here on this. Here are my thoughts on, Star Citizen being in alpha. If people know what they're signing up for, and they know what they're funding and paying into, and the developers are being transparent and they're continuing to make updates, I have a really hard time criticizing that. I have a difficult time coming up with the criticism. It's like, okay, what would I criticize? What would I take issue with? You know what you're paying into. They're not scamming you. They're not like $70, brand new game. We're so excited, and then you pay the $70, and you're like, this is an alpha. Like they're not doing a bait and switch. You know what you're paying into, and if they're doing updates and they're being transparent, I'm not defending it and saying that it's great. I'm saying I have a hard time criticizing that. Like, if you don't want to support that and you don't want to pay into it or be a part of it, then don't. There are tons of early access games in Steam. A ton. And you just don't have to support them. You'd be like, yeah, I'll wait for the full launch. I don't want to buy a game that's not ready yet. I don't want to buy a game that's figuring things out. If you don't have time, like I don't have time for that. Catwalk gifts a member and takes us to 7. You guys could easily hit the next big milestone. We could super easy to go from 2,300 to 2,700. Not difficult for this community at all. Thank you, Catwalk, for doing that. Every 25, I give 5 back to the community. My gifted members count in that total. So I help, right? I'm like, there have been days where I've gifted like 20 or 30 members. That gets piled on and helps us hit those milestones. And you guys did earn 2 Fright Nights. So those will be coming. This Friday night, my wife and I will be playing Alan Wake 2 for Fright Night. That should be fun. AOZ says, the problem is that now you know what you're getting into. Star Citizen missed all of its launch goals that they originally started with. And again, my pushback. I am not a Star Citizen apologist. I haven't ever supported the game. I've not paid a red cent into Star Citizen. But my pushback is, that's a possibility when you fund a project like this. If you're on the internet, plugged in enough to know what Star Citizen is, and you know what it is to the point that you've been compelled to support it, you're educated enough to know that you're paying into something that may not hit deadlines. You know what you're doing. Like, you're familiar with development, right? You're familiar with major lines, mainline studios struggling to launch games on time, for crying out loud. Who hit a deadline lately? A lot of people are delaying. I don't know. I have a really hard time being critical. 2 single gifted members. We got a bit of a member train going here. Risic gifts a member, and it goes to Matt. And then Patrick Q gifts a member. Thank you so much for doing that, taking us up to 9 members on the day. Appreciate that so much. And Raptor throws his hat in the ring and rounds things out nicely with 10 gifted members on the day. Thank you so much, Raptor. Thank you guys for that little member train. Keep it going. Keep those members at the top of the chat. Something Stubby and the Undead Slug. You guys received those gifted members. Make sure and say thank you to the people who gifted the members. If you can afford your own membership and you got it gifted, you can pay it forward and pass that on to somebody else. Just gift one and it'll go to another person. You can get into the alpha for like $45 if you go with the startup ship. People that are spending hundreds or even thousands are longtime supporters who are getting enjoyment out of the project, says Fazimoto. Patrick Q hit 15 months as a member and says, drinking from the fire hose at work, so I can't be around much, but always happy to support the show when I can. Thank you so much, Patrick Q. I appreciate that. AOZ says there's a fine line with intent of completing and continually taking investments indefinitely. Latest interviews show that Chris Roberts doesn't really care to ever finish Star Citizen. Okay, all right. Again, that's fair pushback, AOZ. Let me push back from my perspective. I don't know if a game like this is ever done. The concept of Star Citizen, size, and scope. And a 5-bomb from Alex. That's a layup. 15 out of 25, tempting somebody to dunk home a 10-bomb. Thank you so much, Alex. And it goes to Diaz, Zen, Hattori Hanso, Dave Dunlap, and RXR. I know all of those names. Thrilled to have you guys back in the member pool. Thank you so much for being here. Yo, good morning, Feed. Feed is in the chat. I still can't believe Mark Miller. I think you've got an issue with your profile. There's no way you haven't gotten a gifted membership by now. You're here every day. Lono, you are right there. There's nothing to criticize here. Nothing at all. Back to what I was going to say. I mean this. I don't know if a game like Star Citizen is ever complete. When's it done? Like the concept of always updating it, always improving it, always adding new systems and tweaks and adjustments. A game that is that ambitious and it is that size, I feel like in 7 years they're still going to be updating the game, making changes and adjustments. And I think the dilemma is this. If they fully launch the game, does that not then come with expectations that don't align with what I just said? Like the game's never really done. They're always adding, they're always updating, right? Raptor gifts a member to keep the member train going and takes us to 16. Thank you so much, Raptor. Today is, to the people that have been holding off on gifting, today's a fantastic day to do gifting. We're not talking about any of the lightning rod topics. You're not going to end up gifting a membership to a hater. The hate watchers are in a low count today. So today's a great day to do gifted members. I know some people have been holding off. We've been weeding out the haters so they don't get them all that often anymore. It's been minimized significantly. $10 super chat tip from CS says, bottom line is that Star Citizen will never be as immersive and engaging as Starfield. Okay. Number one, how can you even make that claim? It'll never be as immersive as engaging as Starfield, so it'll never exceed what Starfield has done? It's eternally less than? That's such a bizarre position to take. Your Reforge Roast email has a white logo on a white background. I thought you were better than that. Creature might not know that that's what's happening. It's because he might have to go in and change the logo. Hey, cool. It shows that I hearted a super chat from CS in the chat. That's kind of neat. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you to not like Starfield, but acting like a game is perpetually less than another game, like, it'll never be as immersive as engaging, like, oh, okay, wow. Well, like, that's a lot of confidence in a game being eternally transcendent in its quality. Okay, that's a weird position to have. I'm glad no, the coffee's ruined. I'll need a free bag. Oh, Creature's working on that stuff. Okay. Listen, if you're enjoying Starfield, that's great. It doesn't really have anything to do with today's topic. Star Citizen, in my estimation, is a very different game. Like, similar in theme, like you're in outer space, but they call this a trading combat space game. I don't think that's a genre overlap. I mean, there's obviously similarities, because if you play through Squadron 42, the decisions you're making, they said, will impact what happens in Star Citizen. So yeah, there's similarities, but I don't know why you would draw that comparison. Like, that would be like saying No Man's Sky will always be better than Star Citizen. Like, there's just very different approaches to a game that gives you space exploration as an experience. I think they're very different games. I think CS is talking about, because Starfield has mod support perpetually, and that's not including BSG updates over 5 years, not including DLCs yet to drop. Wow, you seem really in tune with CS's argumentation. Again, I don't understand the invocation of being like, hey, y'all are talking about Star Citizen. I just want y'all to know that Beyonce dropped one of the best albums of all time. Like, I don't know why you're Kanyeing it up, but we're talking about Star Citizen if it ever launches. If a game like Star Citizen is ever complete or done, I don't think that has anything to do with Starfield. People always hate on Starfield. Sales numbers speak for themselves. Again, I don't know why you're bringing that up. We're not talking about Starfield. I don't know. Yeah, this is a live stream. Your fave weeb. I feel like some of y'all just come in hoping to bait to get somebody to talk about Starfield. We're not talking about that. There's multiple layers of this conversation. Squadron 42 was originally part of Star Citizen. It's now been ripped out. It's a 20-hour standalone. I said that could be like a secret sauce for live service. That could be a great way to sort of treat Star Citizen, as an early access. I said, that could add pressure, like commercial success of Squadron 42 could add pressure to launch Star Citizen as a complete package. Now, Squadron 42 is one of 3. We know there's going to be episode 2 and 3. Maybe once all 3 games are out, maybe that'll add pressure. We're talking about whether or not, Star Citizen is a scam. Will it ever launch? Is it okay to keep taking money? I don't think there's a reason to start talking about it that a completely separate game. I've not even mentioned. I mentioned No Man's Sky to show you like there's not really even a reason to compare it to No Man's Sky. Like they're very different games. Vapor with 7 months says, good morning, y'all. I'm confused. Are we comparing Squadron 42 to Star Citizen and Starfield? And what is the game that sets the bar for those comparisons? Yeah, the other difference is that Star Citizen is an ongoing game. Star Citizen is a multiplayer ongoing game. Like, it's in a completely different category than like a Bethesda RPG. They're not attempting to do the same things at all. The systems that are going to keep you coming back to Star Citizen, it would be like comparing, a single player shooter campaign and saying, oh, this is way more immersive, than Destiny 2. And it's like, well, that one's attempting to be an ongoing format with player incentivizations and content loops to kind of keep you in the game. It's not as focused on a curated, story-driven experience. Like, you got to be, with comparisons, I'm not saying you can't compare games. Like, I think you could probably do side-by-side comparisons to say, who does space combat the best? Now you're comparing like a specific system. So you could say, here's the space combat in Star Citizen. Here's the space combat in No Man's Sky. Here's the space combat in Starfield. Like, I think that's okay. But like a big broad statement of like, this game will never be as immersive as Starfield. It's like, I don't know why you're saying that. Okay, cool. I've not even played Star Citizen, so I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm more interested in Squadron 42, if I'm honest, because a nice 20-hour campaign with a really crazy cast of actors just looks really interesting to me. I think it looks exciting and potentially a nice inroad to the actual Star Citizen game itself. And that's why I think that could be the secret live service sauce. They could be saying, look, man, you will have that temptation to say, ooh, man, I put a lot of time into this game. I took the time to create a character. I might take my character over to Star Citizen. See if it's any good. It looks like this is where you're creating your character. I'm assuming. Or are they just showing you all the different? Yeah, you got like your little emails here. Yeah, the character design in this is actually quite good, I think. It'd be interesting to see just just how close you could get. I'm always interested when I look at a game like this that gets faces and eyes. They get them really, really good. And it's always interesting to be like, okay, can I make myself? Is that possible? Will I be able to get the I'm in the game experience? Because I feel like sometimes when you have games like this, like the customization, a little limited. You can't exactly look the way that you want. Has Star Citizen ever done a free weekend or trial? I would need that before dropping any money. Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. I think the issue with trying to do like a trial of Star Citizen, anytime I've looked at the Star Citizen gameplay and the systems, I'm like, I don't have that kind of time, bro. I don't have that kind of time. That's why when I heard, oh yeah, Squadron 42, it's completely standalone. Yeah, it's just a campaign. A single-player offline campaign, I was like, oh, well, I'll play that. Oh, Dustin Straw is saying they do free weekends. Jay Westlow is saying they have done free weekends. Okay. Well, there you go. They do it all the time, says Fozzie. They call it free fly. Yeah. I'll be honest. Even that, I'd be like, it's still daunting, even though it's free. Andy Ackerman with a $5 super chat tip. No game will ever be as immersive as a set of vibrating beads attached via cord. I don't know what you're saying, Andy. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Chapter 8 says, I don't get the whole I'll make myself thing. Then again, I usually play as male characters and make my favorite movie book characters. Yeah, I want to see... I don't care to play as other people. Like, I like playing as... I actually prefer playing as women because I've played as dudes, like, my whole life. So it's like if I'm taking a break from a game where I'm going to put myself in the game, it's like I'll play as Aloy, I'll play as Lara Croft, I'll play as, Celine in Returnal. I much prefer that. It's like, I've been playing as dudes my whole life. Like, it's just more interesting to have a completely different character and voice than a, the macho angry guy. But, yeah, I like to make myself in an RPG, make the beard and the hair and everything look like me. Eugene says, my question becomes, are they profiting? They're supposed to be developing a game to be sold for profit later. If they're profiting now, I'd have some issues. They would have to release a financial report, Eugene, right? Now, my understanding, when you back a project like this, you're funding development. You're not like feeding a profit margin. So, but I don't know how that works. So are they just operating the last 11 years? Like, people are being paid, obviously. People are making money and going home and coming back to work, right? They're paying their bills. Is that what they're doing? Or is it just literally you're just putting all the money and then you're just paying people out of that money? Like, I don't know. They release the financial reports as well, says Kyles. Well, there you go. They release a financial report every year, says Dano. Okay, there you go. So, lawyers in the room, if you want to go, check their books to see, there have been private investments alongside the community. Oh, okay, other people investing in the... Oh, well, that's pretty cool. Lono, keep in mind, my PC with an RTX 4090 and Ryzen 9 5950 struggles to run the game at 60 FPS at 1440. Well, and that's one of the concerns I kind of had about the commercial success of the game. If Squadron 42 can't run on even a mid-lane rig, I mean, how much commercial success can you have? If you walk out and say, yeah, 60% of the PC gaming community can't even really play this game. Your rigs are too weak, That's going to really hurt your profitability when you tell a large portion of the PC landscape that, yeah, your rig's not strong enough. That's a big damper on your sales. Star Citizen isn't optimized at all. The game hasn't been optimized yet, says Fozzie. They're trying to make it operate on PS5. That's promising. Oh, really? Well, I mean, that gets my attention. If you I've always said that about New World, the MMO. I've always said, man, if you guys could bring that to console, feel like you'd get a lot of players. You'd get a lot of casuals, that's for sure. Squadron 42 isn't coming out anytime soon. The footage they've shown isn't running on consumer-level hardware, says Eugene. Okay, I mean, I'll push back on that. They said that the game is feature complete and they're entering their polish phase. How long do you think a polish phase would last? 2 years? I mean, I'm thinking about a year. I'm thinking this launches late next year. Lono, I played on a super high-end rig. You can't hold high FPS even then. It needs optimization super badly. Now, when you guys are saying you're playing on a super high-end rig, Are you guys talking about Star Citizen? Or are you talking about Squadron 42? Which are we? I think we're talking interchangeably here, which is fine. I'm just wanting clarity. Why optimize something that's still being developed? 1 to 2 years, 2 years. Eugene says 3 to 4. With them 2 to 3. So you think they drop a 26-minute trailer and they say, we're feature complete, we're entering polish phase, and you think they did that and then they're going to be like, see you in 3 years? Why would they say anything? Oh, okay, so there's no playable version of Squadron 42. I wasn't sure if they, like, let some of the founders play a demo or something. Okay, so you guys are just talking about Star Citizen not being optimized. You guys have high-end rigs and you're, like, struggling. This is not coming out in 2024. What would be the point in telling people you're feature complete and entering polish phase if you can't come out within at least a year of saying that? Why even say anything? They said optimization is coming after polish phase. Wouldn't optimization be during the polish phase? A $10 super chat tip from CS. People are just saying that Star Citizen is better because they spent hundreds or thousands of dollars on it. Starfield's a normal price game. It's a way better value proposition. Okay, somebody did this the other day, and I don't know why you guys do this. A guy did this yesterday. He kept tipping money to, like, defend Tears of the Kingdom. And now we've moved on in the conversation, and you're tipping money to go back and defend Starfield. Look, man, I made it very clear. It's great you're enjoying Starfield. To reduce everybody's praise of Star Citizen to they're only saying that because they've spent money on it is reductionist and condescending, as if they're too stupid to know what a good game is. Well, they're only saying it because they spent money. A great question that I would have for you is, why do you think they spent money? Did they spend money because they're dumb, or did they spend money because they feel they're getting value? They feel they're getting something that's worth spending money on, right? I don't know why you keep going back to Starfield. We're not talking about Starfield. We have moved on from that conversation. I very politely was like, we're not really doing that. We're talking about all the different moving parts of Squadron 42. And right now what we're talking about is Squadron 42. In my mind, when you say you're feature complete and you're like, we're going into polish phase, and you guys are like, yeah, that's 3 more years at least. I'm like, what? They've already, according to the article I read, they've already started to work on the next campaign, episode 2, Behind Enemy Lines, and episode 3 has not been named yet. Wouldn't that mean you've already shifted some bandwidth around? You've already shifted bandwidth around. You're already moving people to the next game. You know? You have to start refunding those super chats. Corey, you could let me run the show. There is no way to refund a super chat. I can't click on it and say refund, right? Stop telling me how to run the show, Corey. That's the second time today you've, like, condescendingly told me how to run the show. If you have a better show to run, then go do it. Like, I can't ignore a super chat and be like, yeah, sorry, buddy, I don't like what you said. Like, that doesn't work, right? Stop telling me how to run the show. It's more annoying than the guy's super chats. Andy Ackerman with a $5 super chat. CS is only saying that because he's spending money on Game Pass and he to defend his purchase. Right, that argument cuts both ways. Like, people are only defending it because they spent money on it. That argument cuts both ways. Like, is every game only then defended because people spent money on it? Like, that's just bizarre. East Coast Overlord with a $5 super chat tip. To get back on topic, RSI releases long videos about their tech advancements regularly. This is just one edition. This one just had the addition of Squadron 42. What? This is a Squadron 42 video. The description says, the title of the video is Squadron 42, I Held the Line. And then the description of the video says, we are excited to announce that Squadron 42 is now feature complete. As we move into the polishing phase, we're fully focused on optimizing and fine-tuning all aspects of the gameplay experience. So whoever just said they're going to do polish, then optimization, that's not true. Right here in the description. As we move into the polishing phase, we're fully focused on optimizing and fine-tuning all aspects of the gameplay experience to deliver an unprecedented cinematic adventure. To celebrate this milestone, we've gathered our core development leadership from around the globe to share what that means. Thank you for your continued support of Squadron 42. You're here to tell me it's going to take them 3 to 4 years to optimize and fine-tune a 20-hour campaign? Get out of here. No. Y'all are like, well, that's how it goes with Star Citizen. Yeah, Star Citizen's not the same. It's an ongoing, ambitious, huge, open universe. This is a curated experience with cutscenes and sets that you're going to be contained in. I cannot see a company saying, yeah, we're moving on to optimizing and fine-tuning, and that taking 3 to 4 years. That's insane. That's insane to me. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying if that's what happens, I will be so shocked. It's a 20-hour campaign. Now, if it was like a 50 or 60-hour campaign, I'd be like, okay, maybe you're right. That's pretty big. But a 20-hour campaign? Polishing and optimizing and fine-tuning a 20-hour campaign? I don't know, man. That's a year in my book. Like, I'm not a developer, but whenever we've heard from companies about, you know, they're going to delay the game to do some polish. You know, they delay the game like a couple of months, 6 months. To be fair, I assume Star Citizen has the ability to be a great game. I just don't know about hardware being able to support their visions yet. Scope creep, just like Starfield, I suppose. Okay, hang on. Squadron 42 official trailer 5 years ago. Yeah, that's not the same, Paul. An official trailer is not the same as a company officially announcing, we are feature complete. We're moving on to optimizing and fine-tuning. The work is completely different. Cyberpunk took 3 years to polish. No, Cyberpunk was not polishing. A lot of their updates came with additive content, like entire systems like transmog and stuff. They weren't polishing and optimizing Cyberpunk for 3 years. Many of the Cyberpunk updates were additive and actually had like missions and new gear. And so they're making stuff. Like that's a completely different world entirely. Listen, I'm not trying to hype you guys up and be like, it's coming next year. I'm just here to say it'd be really weird to walk out and be like, hey, we showed y'all a trailer 5 years ago. We are feature complete. We are moving on to optimization and fine tuning. And you're like, it's going to be another 3 or 4 years. Like, what? So they announced the game with a trailer 5 years ago. And then after that amount of time, they're like, oh, we're feature complete. We're moving on to optimization. You're like, it's going to take about the same amount of time, 3 or 4. It took us 5 years to get here. We'll shave off a couple years, 3 or 4. That seems bonkers to me. Starfield was polished for 1.5 years, and that's studio decided Baldur's Gate. But we don't know that. They never came out and said that. We've heard internally that they were told, take more time. We want the game to be ready. We want the game to be polished or whatever. We don't know their timeline. We don't. This company's very transparent. We don't have a concrete timeline for Starfield. We can't start talking about that like we know what happened. We can theorize. I've done my own theorization about Starfield, but we can't definitively say, yeah, I mean, they took 1.5 years and they're a much larger studio. The studio's been developing for 10 years. I'm sure it'll be good. It's just going to take forever. Eugene says the footage looks like it was rendered on business class cards, not consumer GPUs. Maybe even cloud-based cards that are used for special effects. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most compelling argument, is that it's clear that they're building this for an incredibly high levels of cards. Hang on a second. I forgot to thank some YouTube lurker. Somebody ordered some coffee. Sorry I didn't shout these out. 3 bags of light roast to YouTube Lurker, and my man Victor Mayhem buys himself 3 bags of light roast. The light roast is back, and you guys seem to be enjoying it. Thank you so much for doing that. If you guys want to support the channel, a really easy way to do that is to hit the subscribe button so you can talk in my chat. Smash that like button. Let's set our sights on 300 likes. You can become a member. Every 25 members, I gift 5 back to the community. You can gift members, do your own membership. If you don't do membership on YouTube or you can't afford one right now, that's totally fine. We have a very generous community. My gifted memberships might hit you. The gifted memberships from chat might hit you. Those are all the various ways you can support. We do have sponsors listed below, like I'm wearing Gamer Advantage glasses and an Into the AM t-shirt. If you're into any of that, those links are provided below. The coffee is not a sponsor, though. That is a separate thing. That's mine. This is a light roast and a dark roast that we sell. My wife and kiddos bag it up and ship it to you. It's basically like supporting a small business. So those are all the great ways to support the channel. We've been going for about an hour and 14 minutes. It's a live, interactive, family-friendly, maybe not family-friendly, safe for work. It's a safe for work broadcast Monday through Friday about gaming. I also do upload content and members-only content as well. I'm not a member again. Dang it, Google. Yeah, we had a pretty big dip in membership, and I've had a lot of people come in and say that, hey, they didn't renew, and they got to go in and like manually do it. They do that thing like every 90 days, and I don't understand why. I've never had a company so bent on not keeping people's subscriptions going. Like, imagine Netflix doing that. Yeah, we canceled your subscription. We thought maybe you were bored. Like, what? Welcome back, East Coast Overlord. Whiskey Neat says Team Light Roast. There you go. Oh, we need to change those bags. I have the microphone on them. There's over 200 ships, and some of the very largest are still being developed, but they've also created ships that they never even announced. 90% you can buy in-game. Creature says, based on current info, would it make sense that they are timing the updates to Star Citizen that Squadron 42 just received with the release of the 5000 series GPUs? Would certainly make sense to me. Like I said, I think that's the most compelling thing that's been argued today, is that this won't run on most consumer-level PCs, you know, but that's the question. Can they go in and do optimization and allow you to turn down resolution, turn off all these fancy lighting effects? You know, I mean, they really like their lighting in this game, okay? So, you know, are they going to let you turn a lot of that stuff off and, you know, run it on weaker hardware? I don't know. Cody Biscuits with 17 months. Hope everyone's having a great week. Welcome back, Cody Biscuits. And it's a member plus. Is Squadron 4 built on the same engine as Star Citizen? That is what Crytek is alleging. They're alleging that this has been built on the Cry engine, and they're suing. Now, they've backed off, and they have said that they will refile when Squadron 42 releases. And the company behind this, the developers behind Star Citizen, have said that they're just sort of being attention seeking is what they claimed. They said that it's ridiculous. So I'm not sure what will come of the lawsuit, but there's actually a lawsuit, an impending one at the very least, or a threatened one, with respect to them using the Cry engine. And again, I don't know. I'm not super up on the Cry engine. Is it an engine that's really optimizable? Can they go in and give you a bunch of things to turn off? Can you lower the draw distance and the chromatic aberration? Can you turn that off? And can you turn off the ray tracing if there's ray tracing? Can you turn down texture detail? Can you do all that, and get this thing to launch on more mid-lane PCs? Because I would imagine that's going to be one of your major barriers, is if people can't play the game and have it run well, they're not going to want to buy it. Because my thought was, this is a great inroad into Star Citizen. A great inroad into Star Citizen. It's like you can come play and buy the campaign, and if you really enjoy the campaign, and you're like, man, this game's kind of sweet. I had fun doing that. I made a lot of decisions. Gotten some fun shootouts, gotten some fun dogfights, man. This game's not too bad. You might jump over, into Star Citizen. Just got an email saying I was gifted a membership. Cheers to whoever gave it to me. Yo, what's good, Zen? Good to see you in the chat. Thanks so much for being here. We're well on our way to hitting our 25 goal. We've gone well beyond that some days. We've hit over 100, sometimes upwards of like 600 members in a day, and then I have to gift what I owe every 25. So thank you guys so much for helping with that. Zen pays it forward and gifts one back and says, look, man, I can pay for my own membership. Somebody gave me one, so I'm going to pay it forward. You guys can always do that anytime you get a gifted membership. I appreciate you paying that forward, Zen. They switched to Lumberyard in 2016, which is a fork of CryEngine. The only thing I know that uses CryEngine off the top of my head is the Crysis series. I mean, that's what they're alleging. That's what Crytek is alleging. They're alleging you're using CryEngine. That's not what was agreed upon. We're going to sue. We're going to refile when Squadron 42 releases. So that's the information I found. I was like, okay, you're saying it's built on a fork of the CryEngine, and maybe that's going to be their argument. Maybe Crytek is incorrect. Didn't Rise, Son of Rome use it? I remember that game. I feel like that game was like ahead of its time in its appearance. What engine does Rise, Son of Rome use? Yeah, this wiki is alleging that it's the CryEngine. YouTube Lurker hits 17 months and a VIP gold. Welcome back. Thanks for the coffee order as well, Lurker. Looks like it's using Lumberyard now. Lumberyard is owned by Amazon, says Abe. Okay. So what is Crytek assume? What wouldn't? Here. I guess here's my question. Wouldn't the developers just come out and say we're not using your engine? Do you know what I'm saying? Wouldn't they just come out and be like, no, we're not using your engine? What are you talking about? We're using Lumberyard. Their response to the lawsuit was very like, oh, they're just attention seeking. It's like, but are you using the engine? Yo, it's good, Nitro Fusion. Havoc says, a lot of Star Citizen lag is from server-side calculations due to the physics-based persistent universe. Currently, there is no consumer or higher-grade setup that can run the game well while a server is being used by multiple people. I know it sounds weird, but it's just how it is. The game is jank currently. I'm hoping a single-player-based game will act much better. For reference, I have a 13900K and a 3080 Ti, and the server FPS is more impactful than my client FPS. Creature says, from what I see, they're using the same engine as New World. They changed it a few years back. Lumberyard, yes. They still have to defend it in court, and there are unique markers in coding if you know what to look for. Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're not using their engine, why would you just come out and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're using Lumberyard. What do you mean? CryEngine's licensed to Amazon. They can do whatever they want with it, but they would still have to pay Crytek. It's now called O3DE. Either way, though, CIG has customized it to their own purposes so far, and a lot of Crytek devs work at CIG. It's basically their own. Zelator with 6 months in a VIP says, but what about the sandwiches? Lumberyard is deprecated and has evolved to Open 3D. Oh. Okay. I mean, that was what my research was like. Oh, they're being sued over the engine. Like, I didn't go down the rabbit hole of what y'all are telling me. I didn't go down that rabbit hole. I was just trying to gather information about Squadron 42 specifically as a game. How is it related to Star Citizen? And then I was like, oh, they're being sued over the engine. Well, not currently sued. Crytek said they'll refile once Squadron 42 launched. So that's why it came up in my research. It was like, well, when Squadron 42 finally releases, they're staring down the barrel of a potential lawsuit. Their video is number 17 on trending. Is it still number 17 on trending? Yeah, their video is number 17 on trending. So their video is in the top 20 on trending on YouTube. Problem with this conversation is we just don't know what the single-player game is going to run like when we only have Star Citizen to go off, which is a massive MMO. Paul says, you can't take the Unreal Engine and call it Jim's Engine and use it for free. Well, and I believe what Crytek was alleging is this isn't what we agreed upon. So I don't know. On that note, God knows how good CryEngine 6 is going to be. Yeah, their contention was, we didn't agree on that. The agreed upon engine is not the one that you're using. So I don't know if they have like inside information from the company. Do they know somebody that works there? I have no idea. The engine business is an ongoing thing with them for a long while now. There might be contracts that were created to use the CryEngine and now it's not being used. Star Engine is basically the new CryEngine. Right, but like what Paul is saying, like if you basically take an existing engine, make a bunch of changes to it, you know, and make a bunch of modifications, you could, what are you gonna do? Like you're gonna just, oh, it's our engine now, you know? Isn't there a better mic setup you can use so that you don't have the mic in your mouth basically all stream? Have you ever seen anybody use this microphone before? Have you ever watched Joe Rogan's podcast? How about Howard Stern? Where's the microphone in their studio? Is it out of the frame? Is it up in the air? Or is it right in front of their face? Do you understand microphones and how they work? Look at some of the most successful podcasts. Look at anybody that uses the Shure SM7B. Where do they put it? I can tell you where you could put it. I'm just kidding. I believe it was because they couldn't get it to run on CryEngine, so they basically had to make their own. Did they agree to use Crytek and then backed out? The article I read said it the other way. The article I read said it the other way. It was like they're not supposed to be using that. You know? They're like, yeah, you're not supposed to be using that. That's not what we agreed upon. Live string low on sound quality. That's an interesting one. I usually get compliments on the sound quality of the stream. That, you know, that's usually what I get, you know. Rogan like rests his face on it some of the time. His sounds really good. I know they're probably running that through like a really nice mixer. Lonely, but do you really want to be like Rogan and Stern? They weren't that successful after all. Is today tell Lona how to run his stream day? Yeah, that's right. I mean, we could get into why people do that and how the farther you are away from the mic, the less full the sound is, and the closer you are, the more full, and you get all of the range. Like, you know, there's a science to it. I'm not an audiophile, but I understand the basics of if you want a very full and rich sound, you want to be right up on top of the mic. I missed all this. Like, what about the CryEngine? Let me pull up the exact quote that I found. Let me pull it up. It was at the very end of my monologue. At the very end of my monologue, I spoke to the lawsuit. What the frick? Okay, hang on. I have this like overlay that sets dark mode on for Google Docs. Okay, here we go. Crytek brought, now this is according to PC Gamer. Crytek brought a lawsuit against CIG for using Crytek's engine, CryEngine, and part of the lawsuit hinges on the fact that CIG allegedly used CryEngine for 2 games, Star Citizen and Squadron 42, instead of the agreed one. So, I don't know. Crytek has requested to withdraw the lawsuit and says it'll refile when Squadron 42 releases. Yo, Doe Devas with 22 months in a VIP. 22 and still going. Been a Lurk fan since Black Armory days, though. My man, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And a 10 bomb from Doe Devas. He says, look, man, 25 ain't nothing. Let's scream past it. He's the agent of chaos. When we go past a 25, whoops, we set our sights on the next one. Every 25, I give 5, and this guy just dropped a big one. Help this man out. Keep it going. As I said earlier, today is one of the best days to gift. We knew this was going to be a slightly self-indulgent topic. Every once in a while, there's something that like I'm interested in and I think looks cool, and I'm like, this is not a barn burner of news. You know, this isn't like a page turner, but I think it's important and interesting, and I want to play this game. I'm obviously going to have to probably upgrade my PC to play it, but so today is a great day to go nuts with gifteds. You guys, if you want. Some days you guys go nuts and we're like covering like Call of Duty, and I'm like, don't go nuts right now. Call of Duty fans typically only watch Call of Duty streams. So we want to be strategic about adding people to the community, you know? I forget what we were doing. We were covering Call of Duty and we got like 400 members, and I was like, none of these people are coming back because I'm not a Call of Duty channel by any stretch of the imagination. Oh, man. Is it a single-player campaign version of Star Citizen? It's not a single-player campaign version of Star Citizen. It's in the Star Citizen universe, a totally standalone, single-player, 20-hour campaign that you can play offline. You don't even need to be online. Now, when you're done with Squadron 42, you can take your character over into Star Citizen if you want. Now, I don't know. So there's 3 campaigns planned. They're calling them episodes. So this is episode 1. It's called Squadron 42. Episode 2 is called Behind Enemy Lines. Episode 3 doesn't have a name yet. So the question that I have is, let's say I do Squadron 42 and I'm like, this is kind of hot. And then I go over into Star Citizen. When episode 2 comes out, and, you know, it's called Behind Enemy Lines, can I then take my Star Citizen character over into episode 2? Does that make sense? Have they explained that to any of you guys that actually play Star Citizen? Like when this comes out, Squadron 42 happens before. Chronologically, it happens before the events of Star Citizen. So what would they do? Can you take like your existing character in Star Citizen over, or would you go over and basically create a character specifically for Squadron 42? And would that then impact your character in Star Citizen? You know, the decisions you're making? Like they're saying, yeah, if you play this, you'll be a citizen, and then you'll get like a lower, you know, sounds very something only that really appeals to like adults. Like you pay lower taxes. Someone finally got the story right. Oh, Media Molecule is reportedly looking to cut nearly 20 staffers from the studio. Just to clear things up, CIG has their own engine called Star Engine, super high tech. Okay. Permadeath is a thing. You only do the one character. Your character in Star Citizen is after the campaign. Okay. Squadron 42 and Star Citizen have no relation. That's not true. That's not true. Here, I'll read it to you. That was a question I had. How are they connected? This says here, you can think of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen for the most part as separate entities. You don't have to own one to play the other, and they're both fully priced games. However, some of the actions you take in Squadron 42 will cross over to Star Citizen should you make the jump. Certain decisions will, for example, open up vendors in the persistent universe. CIG has also previously suggested that completing Squadron 42 will grant you citizenship in the persistent universe, which has a few perks such as lower tax rates. So unless PC Gamer got this wrong and that detail has changed, they're saying that there is a connection. That if I start with Squadron 42 and I finish it, I can be like, I'm going to go over into Star Citizen. And my decisions kind of come with me. They impact my experience over in Star Citizen. I think that's the plan. The custom character you make in Squadron can move over to Star Citizen. They both share the same creator. Yes, and that's what this seems to indicate. Again, this is PC Gamer saying that this has been indicated by CIG. They could have it wrong, but this, I don't know, it sounds sensible to me. A 10 spot from Abyssian? I'm just going to call you Abyss. Abyss with a $10 super chat tip. They revealed their own engine. They call it Star Engine on the last Saturday live stream. They even trademarked it. They haven't posted an official vid yet. Google Star Citizen Star Engine to see a repost of it. Okay, thank you. So you're telling me so what did they build the engine on though? Right? Star Engine, here's the wiki, is the unofficial name of the Star Citizen game engine since before moving to Amazon Lumberyard. It was a heavily refactored version of CryEngine 3 from Crytek, used since the first in-engine video released at the start of the crowdfunding campaign. More specifically, the last update integrated into Star Citizen's code was patch 3.8. On December of 2016, CIG announced with the release of Star Citizen Alpha its move to Amazon Lumberyard game engine, which is also based on CryEngine, in order to utilize the integrated Amazon Web Services and cloud computing features to support next-generation online gaming. It is not known which version of Lumberyard is currently integrated in Star Engine and how CIG will handle future iterations. So the question would be, East Coast Overlord with a $5 super chat tip says, I started watching you as a kid during Gambit Prime. I know I'm an old now that lower taxes sounds kind of cool. So I guess that's the question is, does Crytek have a case because Lumberyard is built on a version of Crytek? I don't know how all the legalities work at engine level. It's like, okay, well, the Amazon Lumberyard is based on CryEngine 3.8, according to this wiki. So does that give Crytek a case to say, hey, wait a minute, that's not what was agreed upon? You're still using essentially our technology. I don't know. They said, I thought Amazon abandoned Lumberyard. Well, according to this, the Star Engine is basically a heavily refactored... It was heavily refactored version since this, more specifically the last update. Yeah, they moved to Lumberyard in 2016, but it sounds to me like they've kind of refactored it, rebuilt it, restructured it, and it's like, no, it's our engine now. It's a single-player war campaign set place in the same verse with the prequel backstory of your character. Oh, yeah, you're talking about what Squadron 42 is. I know one benefit is where if you complete Squadron 42... you earn access to buy a special heavy fighter in the persistent universe. Okay. New World runs on it, does it not? Yeah, I don't know. Somebody said that earlier. It might have been Creature said that it runs on the same engine that New World runs on. It's the most lawyery answer possible. I don't have enough info, can't really say. And it's never the answer anyone wants. Abyssinian? New World runs on it now. They are going through an engine change from what I understand, though. Okay. Star Citizen, you can lose your stuff from what I understand, though, so no thanks. Like lose all your possessions in your ship and stuff, like if somebody attacks you? All right. I'm going to need a member stump, Creature. I asked J-Stubs what the process actually is. Yeah, J-Stubs could tell us. New World, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42 are the only game using that engine, according to the wiki. Huh. You have ship insurance. Good golly, it sounds like literally adulting in a video game. You have insurance, you have taxes, you can lose everything. You use ship insurance to avoid that. You get in like an accident, like bump into somebody's ship. They're like, come on, man. I just paid to buff that out. You don't lose anything. All ships can be respawned. You can be looted. Vapor with a gifted member. Thank you so much. Pushing us a little bit closer to a nice milestone today. Thank you very much, Vapor. And it goes to Alan. You have ship insurance, but if you get back to your body, you can get your stuff back. But if you are hunted, you're gonna lose yourself. Lose yourself? What do you mean by lose yourself? Did you mean to say lose your stuff? You speed, straight to jail. Drive too slow, straight to jail. Drive the speed limit, believe it or not, straight to jail. Frank, thank you so much for 4 months of membership. I'm sorry it's not big gifted, but I'm kind of jobless right now. Vapor, you don't have to do that. A single gifted is amazing. The single gifteds add up. Some days I think we probably have more single gifteds than the big bombs. And if you're between jobs, dude, don't be gifted members to me. Oh, your stuff. You lose yourself. Like, you start all the way over. Yeah, they permadeath. You're done. Man, that Star Citizen game was pretty great until I lost myself. I'm just saying I want more Sims. More like Sims where I only have to worry about woohoo and murdering my characters on purpose. That's weird. I assume Squadron 42 was just going to be a story quest within the online world of Star Citizen. I didn't realize it's built as a completely separate game. My understanding is that it was originally planned to be included in Star Citizen, and I guess it got too big, and they're like, this needs to be its own thing. It was originally announced with Star Citizen. So when people were, funding it and getting it off the ground or whatever, diving in for the first time, well, they were supporting both Star Citizen and Squadron 42. So that's something, and also somebody said if you have like the base, what is it, the base Star Citizen package, then you get Squadron 42. So if you've been supporting the game and essentially funding the game, then you'll get Squadron 42. You're not going to be like, SOL. I bet you will never get to buy this game. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have said they don't think the game will ever fully release. They don't think that you're ever going to have a fully launched version of Star Citizen. They don't see it happening. I think that's not necessarily a problem if they're consistently updating the game, being transparent with people. We kind of talked about this earlier, like, can the game ever really be done? Like, is that possible? Is it possible for a game like this to ever be done? Aren't they always going to be adding to it, adjusting it, updating it? You can buy into it right now, not backing it. That's a form of backing it, is it not? I mean, isn't that kind of the same thing? You're basically, it's like being a founder in a game. You buy like a founder's pack. You're not like going to a Kickstarter and backing it, but the premise is there. You're paying into a game that isn't fully launched yet. I don't know. I guess there is a difference. How much of the money did they make from backing? How much of the money have they made from people like paying into the actual game's economy of you're buying ships and stuff? You don't get both, but there's a combo of Star Citizen. Oh, somebody told me that if you have like the base package. Oh, you're saying with the starter package. Oh, I mean, isn't that what the person told me? They basically said like if you have like the base level package, you get both. So is there a way to back the game, support the game, pay into the game, and you don't get Squadron 42? Because, I mean, that's what people were kind of arguing. It was like, well, when did they decide to take this out of Star Citizen? What about the people that supported Star Citizen, and this is now not a part of Star Citizen? It's its own entity. If you were supporting the game back then and you saw Star Citizen announced in conjunction with Squadron 42, doesn't that then therefore mean you supported both? And now they're selling this thing separately. I think those people would have potentially a legitimate gripe. I think anytime you support something that's in like a Kickstarter phase, you're kind of accepting that risk. But again, I would suggest a free fly weekend. Try it and ask a backer for a tour, and they'll show you why some spend thousands. Yeah, we had a guy yesterday saying he had spent like $1,500 in the game, and he was enjoying he was enjoying himself. He said it's great. Star Citizen's also the largest game budget production ever. Squadron 42 has always been on sale separately. If you got it both back then you have both, but now there's the option to buy it separately. Right, they separated it, and that's totally fine. Now people know exactly what they're buying and supporting. $1,500 since 2020. Right, so he spent, $500 a year, roughly. That's, if that's all you're spending, I guess. Adam Lee says, hope everyone's having a great day. Remember to like the stream. Thank you. Yeah, we should easily have 300 likes by now, guys. Smash that button. The combo was 40 plus 20 for Squadron 42. But it's no longer in the store. Yeah, people were concerned that it got canceled because they were basically like, why is it not in the store anymore? What's happened? There were rumors circling that they had completely canceled Squadron 42. Where's my YouTube library? What do you mean? They've been doing some updates. Did you lose your watch history or something? I think Zubair said that happened to him recently. His watch history was just gone. My watch history's there. I don't have a long watch later list, and so that hasn't been messed with. I have one video in there. They took it off so they could raise the price when it actually comes out. Rumors, they immediately told us they took it off the store and eventually increased the price. I'm just telling you what I saw. When I researched this, there were rumors flying around that Squadron 42 had been canceled. The community was like, yeah, it's been canceled, it's not happening. So there was a time period where people thought you weren't even going to get Squadron 42. Now, obviously, that's not true. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that's what the community was saying at one point in time. There were articles and Reddit threads about it. They're like, is Squadron 42 been canceled? They posted on the forum that they removed it from the store for a price increase like a week after they removed it from the store. Maybe it was in that window of time people lost their freaking minds. They were like, it's been canceled, because they were like, why'd you pull it from the store? Maybe that's why those headlines and those forum posts existed, because it was around all of the headlines said that and said that it had been removed from the store. So maybe that's why people were theorizing that. They've changed it to a U category, but watch history is gone. Oh yeah, on the mobile app it's different now. Down at the bottom I just click on U and then it has my watch history. It's kind of weird. As of July 2023, the game's reported to be at 61% finished. Aaron says, I'm slightly embarrassed to admit I've spent more than $2,500. As an adult, I realize that is ridiculous, but got really bored during the sickie and went overboard. So when is it coming out? Well, Squadron 42's release date is up for debate. I had people telling me that there's no way it's coming out next year. The description of the video was, Squadron 42 is now feature complete. We're moving on to polish. And they say in polishing it, they're going to be focusing on optimizing and fine-tuning. And I'm like, okay. that's a year. People are like, no, that's like 3 to 4 years. So we had a bit of a debate about that earlier. It's like, if you're moving on to optimization and fine tuning, to me, I'm like, okay, that's a year, maybe a little bit more. People in chat were like, no, man, that's easily another 3 years, maybe 4 years. I'm like, what? Squadron 42 is coming out mid-2025 or less, just guessing. A year and a half wouldn't blow my hair back. I'm thinking a year, you're saying a year and a half. I was surprised by the people saying 2 to 3 to 4 years. I was like, what? Why would you even come out and say anything then? Yeah, we're going to start polishing. We're going to start optimizing and fine-tuning. Oh, okay, cool. When's it coming out? In like 3 years. Like, what? Polishing doesn't have the meaning that it used to now. Polishing and optimization is at least 1.5 to 3 years. Do you have anything to base that off of? Have you seen, are there developer interviews? Are there developer timelines? This is a 20-hour campaign. It's a 20-hour campaign. That just seems, I understand in a really, really big, huge open world that would be like, okay, optimization, polishing could be a ton of time. It could be a ton of time, but this is a 20-hour campaign with cutscenes and sets and places that have been like curated for you to go to. This is Cloud Imperium Games we're talking about. If you know, you know. I know. I think people that are familiar with CIG are like, yeah, that ain't happening that fast. Squadron 42 was also set to be released back in 2014. Nick Donovan says, if you backed a long time ago, you don't need a game package to play Star Citizen, only a ship. Oh no, I think you are around the mark, 1 to 1.5 years. 4 years if you include bug fixes in a 2.0 moment. Is that the new meta of gaming? All right. Everybody sit down. So going forward with game releases. All right, write this down. This is very important. There's early access. Now, early access comes after public beta and public server slams. So we have the alpha, we have the beta, we have the open beta, we have the server slam, and then we have early access, and then we have the release. None of this is the complete game. None of this is the complete game. The real game launch is, a year and a half to 2 years later, now referred to as the 2.0 moment or the No Man's Sky moment. So that's the real release date. So we now have like 8 releases, and if we can get it right by the 8th release, we'll make a profit. All right? Okay. Go do good work. Once we release the game, well, then we actually get to building it, right? I'm being hyperbolic. But it's like, there's the alpha, the closed beta, the open beta, the server slam, there's early access, then there's the official release date, and then there's the day 1 patch, there's the week 1 patch, there's the first DLC, there's the... Like, you can start to see why people get like really jaded and cynical about gaming. Like, I don't think this applies to lots of games, but there's certainly like a trend emerging in certain games where it's like, when's like the actual game gonna release, People saying 3 to 4 years are misinformed. Star Citizen is completely different than Squadron. One is a massive MMO, and the other is a single-player campaign that is feature complete. That's what I'm saying, balls. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, bro, we're not talking about an MMO. We're not talking about a massive universe. We're talking about a 20-hour campaign that is now moving into optimization and fine-tuning. If that takes longer than 2 years... okay, that seems a little strange. Not to mention, they've already started work on Episode 2, Behind Enemy Lines. Episode 3, we don't know the name of. It's like, so you've already shifted bandwidth. If you've shifted bandwidth, there's no... that doesn't stand to reason. They're like, yeah, it's going to take a long time to optimize and fine-tune this thing. A couple years maybe more. Depends on if Thelma shows up to work. It's like, what in the world's going on? Let's not forget that there are also leaks about CIG talking to console manufacturers right now. They also showcase various things they still need to finish for the engine. Yeah, it'd be pretty phenomenal to land a game like this on console, you know, if they can get it to run. Am I reading this right? In 11 years, it's used $580 million of its budget? Oh, I don't know. They've rated, what is it? It's like over $600 million that they've received, right? And then they continue to have people right now paying into the game, like buying ships and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, you read that right. Well, maybe. I don't know if I don't know if what you read is correct. Did they use all 580 million of the total? I don't know. If they thought it would release within a year, I think they'd have said as much. Well, they know better than to say that. I mean, after everything they've been through, I don't think the devs are going to give you a date until it's a lot closer. Like, they'll give you a release date, you know, when it's 6 months out, would be my guess. They know not to do that after everything they've been through. Like, no. You don't go out there and you don't give people a release window. No. That's crazy talk. Lono shortening names is always funny to me. Balzac is Balls. Eugene is Eugene. Butters is Butters. Yeah, I mean, his name is Ballsack. I'd rather say Balls. I don't want to be saying Ballsack, even though I just said it like 3 times. I'm still hyped, but I think we do have to keep in mind they are notorious for building up and missing the marks. Yeah, I mean, the impression that I get is that there are people that are more jaded and more cynical, and they're more skeptical. They're like, nah, these guys aren't going to do this very quickly. You've kind of been here before with them. I think it's more like 20-hour campaign. It's close to 35 to 40 hours. Oh, you think it's more than 20 hours? Well, it was originally going to be a 21-chapter game and land around 20 hours. It's now 28 chapters, and the article I read said the last report on it they had or something, it was 20 hours. I would imagine with an increase in chapter count, with an increase in chapter count, there's likely an increase in length of game as well. Donkey has the best name. Yeah, Donkey Sausage has a pretty good name. You know what name he doesn't shorten? Donkey Sausage. Yeah, when his name was Barrier Mage, I called him Barrier. I feel like they're getting close to finishing Star Citizen. That's why we were hearing about Squadron 42 and console possibilities that they've been working on for over a decade. I agree. You think it's bigger than being reported? Well, the way they phrase it in the article, they weren't saying like definitively 20 hours. I'm just saying 20 hours because that's all we have right now. Right? I'd rather go based off of like what have they said? Let me look here. How do they refer to it? Here it is. Squadron 42 will take place across 28 chapters. Back in 2015, when it was only planned to be 21 chapters long, head of CIG Chris Roberts said it would take around 20 hours to complete, which is still the latest estimate we have. So that's the latest estimate. So if 21 chapters is going to land around 20 hours, I would think 28 chapters is going to land around 28 hours. So maybe you've net gained, somewhere between 5 and 10 hours with those 8 extra chapters. Some of those chapters could be really short. We just don't know. Helix with 21 months in a VIP. Morning, Lono. Had a tough loss in the family this weekend. Thanks for everything you do. Tuning in helps keep my spirits up. Can't wait for the red badge. Man, I'm sorry for your loss, Helix. Glad the show can bring you some joy and some happiness and some distraction. If it's as epic as they show, it'll be absolutely fine with 20 hours. We know a lot of that tech is hitting the PU, so it's a twofer. I'm going to pop my back. Star Citizen's not even close. They chose Squadron 42 against a game that could revolutionize everything. I don't see any indication that Star Citizen's close. Like, I think I understand the theory. My theory was this. you would launch Star Citizen in conjunction with the third campaign, which is a long time from now. Right? So Chapter 1 is Squadron 42. Chapter 2 is Behind Enemy Lines. And then Chapter 3 is we don't know the name. So, in my mind, that would be a great time to fully launch Star Citizen. If the third installment of the campaign comes out in like 9 or 10 years, there's your full release of Star Citizen. He still says human type person. Yeah, because calling you human would just be weird. Human? Hey, human. Campaign's only 5 hours. I will break. No. They've indicated it. Minimum, it's 20. Minimum. That would be incredibly weird. To be like, yeah, it's going to be about 20 hours. And they add chapters, and then you lose a bunch of time. That would be strange. Apparently, 2024 release date is for the next patch, not the game itself. Oh, yeah, like if you check their dev roadmap, they let you know when like everything is coming. Yeah. Well, let's spell it out. They're really transparent. That's why I say the people that are like, oh, it's a scam. Like, okay. I feel like they're pretty transparent with the community. I feel like we know what they're doing and when they're doing it. I understand people's frustration. I sympathize and empathize with people who are like, when's the stinking game going to leave alpha? But this for take the progress tracker with a huge grain of salt. Well, I talked about this during the show open. It seems to me that this is a window into development. Like, they're targets, okay? That's how development works. They're just letting you see behind the curtain. Like, hey, we'll let you see behind the curtain. Here's our target for all these deliverables. You're like, okay, cool. And they're going to consistently miss those targets. And that doesn't mean that they're like a failure. That means, oh, hey, these guys are like every other dev that's out there. They have targets, and they commonly miss those targets. I think this is one of the reasons why it doesn't bother me that much. I'm like, this is development, dude. It's long. It's expensive, especially when your project is this ambitious and this crazy. Barely a hole in the wall to peek through. It has a lot of gaps in the information. Well, wouldn't you say though that it's the most? Is there another game that's more transparent with what it does and when it's doing it? What they're trying to do has never been done. Right, like we decry games for being safe or not taking risks. And my pushback on games like this is like, well, if you want people to be crazy and ambitious, then I don't think you can have everything like behind a closed door and then just all of a sudden 10 years later, like, here's the game. And it's like, this is one of the reasons I've advocated for more early access. Because I feel that the bigger the projects, the more ambitious the projects, the longer they're going to take. And the easier it is to misguide something. Like, think about the analogy of the trajectory of a plane. So I was reading a book recently, and this guy was in a country like overseas, and they were going in and out of mountainous areas, and dropping people off in non-urbanized locations. So, you know, no pavement, like dirt runways. And he would, every once in a while, the pilot would allow him to steer the plane. And the pilot would get very snippy with him if he was off in his calculations, his heading. And he said, listen, I know you might think I'm being harsh with you, but if the heading is off by a couple degrees, we're in the wrong place. We go to the wrong location. You could think of something similarly with a boat. If you set the wrong trajectory for a boat and you head that way for a really long time, you end up way off course of where you need to be, right? If you've ever seen somebody do like a bar graph, you know, and then you see the trajectory of something slowly drift up, right? Two lines slowly eventually intersecting, things like this. You saw this in math class all of the time. Well, the bigger the game project, the larger the game project, there's so much risk of them miscalculating on something like that. Well, we really think this should be the way we do the skill trees and the leveling experience, all right? They're setting a heading for the airplane when they do that. And if they're off by a couple of degrees, they're going to end up in a really bad place. Because that decision they make way back here influences where that plane heads for the next 100 miles. And you end up in the wrong country. And you're like, what? How did this happen? If you do early access, it's like the plane pilot that says, whoa, your heading is off. And you fix that minor adjustment, those couple of degrees, can set the trajectory of a skill tree and a leveling experience and make it significantly better. This is one of the reasons why I think early access will become more common going forward with very large projects, especially projects that are seeking to build something the scope of Baldur's Gate 3, or if they're trying to build an ongoing game. If you're trying to build an ongoing game and you're trying to get people to dump hundreds of hours into your game, how can you predict and foresee what hour 109 looks like? How? And to get it right and to nail it, that's really difficult. A pilot let his 13-year-old son take a selfie in the pilot's seat while at 30,000 feet. His son accidentally locked the controls and 400 people died. Jiminy Christmas, that's dark. They announced some crazy new tech, server meshing. Their universe is split up between multiple servers. Players jump between servers completely seamlessly, no loading screens. Game changer for MMOs. That's another challenge, too. We haven't even really talked about that. Imagine flying that plane and you're in flight for such a long time that this analogy works. Imagine you're in the plane and you're in that plane and you got your heading set to what you thought was, we're going to be landing in a country in Africa, and when you get there, there has been a war and the lines have moved and you've now landed in a completely different country. You're like, oops, we were up there for so long. You know, imagine flights take 5 years. We were up there for so long, by the time we landed, everything is different now. Well, when your game is in production for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, everything they thought was cool and everything they might have thought was in line with player expectations, technology has changed. And it's like, 8 years ago, we really thought this was a great idea. And a lot has changed since then. All the lines have moved. You know, we set the right heading, we landed in the right space, but the territory lines have shifted. We're in the wrong country now. We did the wrong thing. Game development is bigger, longer, and more expensive than it's ever been. So if you don't set up systems of agility and being able to adapt, then you're going to end up with a game that's in production for 5 or 6 years, and it launches, and everyone's like, this game feels like something from last gen. Why'd you do all this? This all seems like dated. What is going on? Why would you do all this? Well, they set the heading. They set the heading of certain systems and ideas 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and this is a great heading. 5 or 6 years go by, and that heading has now landed them in the ocean instead of on green pastures. As a program manager in software, I can tell you there is no number more random or disconnected from reality than an estimate on feature complete provided by a software engine dev. Starfield? I'm not even talking about Starfield. I remember playing Ghost Recon Future Soldier, and that game got delayed. I don't even know how many times that game got delayed. I want to say it was 4 or 5 times. And when the game finally came out, it was like, it had all these dated concepts, all this dated pacing. It was extremely weird. There were elements of the game's combat and graphics that were really cool, but then you would do certain things and you were like, what is this? I'll tell you what it was. It was a game that was in the oven so long that when it came out, players had developed allergies to main ingredients. It was like, we used to eat this all the time 10 years ago, but now, this is lame. This is gross. We don't like that. Don't do that. And it's like, well, you guys liked this 6 or 7 years ago. That's why we did it. We baked it into the crust. It's there everywhere. It's like, well, yeah, times have changed, old man. I seriously believe that. I seriously believe more and more developers are going to start pushing for small deliverables, early access, and spending years working with the community to polish the product. What game was that? It was Ghost. What was it? I believe it was called Ghost Recon Future Soldier. I remember playing it with a friend of mine, and we were like, it released in 2012. All right. Ghost Recon Future Soldier's long road to release was just extended. They announced it'll be not make its previously scheduled March 2012 release date. It's now slated for May. So even once they finally got to the year that it was supposed to launch, it got delayed again. Delayed how many times? Let me see if I can get a history on how many times it was delayed. The release of Future Soldier was initially targeted for the 2009 to 2010 fiscal year. Publication was delayed to 2010-2011 fiscal year, and then to March quarter 2011 in May of 2010. Then to April 2011, March 2012 fiscal period. So it went from being slated to land in fiscal year 2009 to 2010 to landing in May of 2012. It was delayed multiple times. And I remember playing with my friend. Like, it was like, what happened to this game? I was in the oven too long, dude. They were baking that cake forever. I distinctly remember a mission. Where we got to a building. I had like a hair. We got to a building and we ran up multiple flights of stairs. I don't know, 5 or 6, just floor, just up. No fighting, no puzzle solving, nothing. No rappelling, no action. And we get all the way to the top of the stairs, and we get to a door. We hold a button down, and it takes us into a cutscene. I was like, what was the point of that? And then, after that cutscene, we had to go all the way back down again. And it was like, what was the point of that? Now, at the time, 2012 is when the game comes out. 5 or 6 years before that, 2005, 2006, you wouldn't have thought anything about that. You'd have thought, that was pretty cool, man. We were up pretty high in that building, and that cutscene was getting jiggy with it, or whatever phrases we used back then. I don't know what we said. Anyway, you're like, oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool. You get into 2012, and it's like, why the frick did you make me do that? You made me climb stairs for a cutscene? I enjoyed Future Soldier. There were elements of Future Soldier that were really dope. There was. Like, the combat was cool. Special effects were pretty cool. The graphics were pretty cool. But it was dated. It had been delayed multiple times, multiple years. Ghost Recon Future Soldier. It was slated to land in fiscal year 2009 to 2010. It got delayed out of that, and then it got delayed again, and then it got delayed one last time in 2012. It was supposed to come out like in the beginning, and it came out in May of 2012. It got delayed multiple times. And I'm not kidding you. I remember playing with my friend, and I was like, this game was just in development for too long. It feels like a dated hodgepodge of cool new ideas and like old ideas, and I'm sure you did say getting jiggy with it, Lono. Seems on brand. No, I didn't say that. The guys that I played with would have not have allowed me to say that. They'd be like, what'd you say? They'd be like, all right, I'm going to head out. They'd be like, all right, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna take the day off, bro. No more gaming with Lono today. Future Soldier was my first Ghost Recon game. Yeah, it was not necessarily a bad game. All I'm saying is you could tell that it had been in development for like a really long time. How long have you been gaming? What was your first game? My first game ever was probably a game on the Coleco. My earliest memories of the Coleco would be Frenzy, River Raid, games like Pitfall, going to the arcade with my dad, watching my dad play Punch-Out in the arcade with like the green guy you could see through him. So we had the Coleco, then we got an original Nintendo, so I remember Christmas morning playing Operation Wolf with the gun, and Operation Wolf and the original Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. And on the original Nintendo, some of my earliest great memories are of the original Zelda. I remember helping my dad solve, I believe it's the 7th dungeon where you have to blow the whistle at the lake and it dries up the lake. I was like, try blowing the new, flute whistle that you got. And he tried it. And I'll remember to this day, he looked at me, he's like, oh, you were right. Because it like played the music and the scene changed. That was just awesome. That, to me, that was like the height of video games, was figuring out a way to get into a dungeon in the original Zelda with my dad. And then Tecmo Super Bowl, we played that a lot. And then we got a Super Nintendo, and we played a ton of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Mario Kart. First PC games I ever played was like Wolfenstein 3D, like a boxing game. People have tried to like pull my gamer card, and they're like, this guy doesn't game. And it's like, because I don't have platinums, they think I don't play games. Man, I was playing video games before some of y'all were born. Like, I was in a clan in Quake 3 Rockin' Arena ranking on the Eastern ladders when you were like learning how to count. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm 42. And the new era, the new generation of gamers that like check trophies to be like, is this guy a real gamer? It's like, I never have chased trophies or platinums. So we were a Nintendo family though. I'm just asking because I know I'm older than you, was just wondering. Yeah, you might have played maybe some of the games prior to the Coleco. My dad had a Pong. We didn't really play the Pong that much, but we were big on the Coleco. Yeah. You're old? Yeah. I've never found going for trophies just to be appealing. And that's like the new, there's just this weird breed of gamer that checks that as like they're checking if you're a legitimate gamer or not. I'm just like, get the Spidey Platinum. No, I actually said yesterday, and I genuinely mean it, like, I'm not going to get any platinums. I'll get games as close to a platinum as I can and just not do it. Just to trigger people. Like, this guy doesn't have any platinums. I almost lost my marriage to video games. Don't lecture me on my gaming prowess, little child. Well, and that's the thing, too, is, man, I would love... There's a part of me that's like, dude, that'd be so amazing if I'd have been able to, like, slam out, you know, Spider-Man 2 over the weekend. But, you know, I went and did Halloween stuff with my kids and hung out with my niece and went to the zoo and saw a tiger growling really loud. I saw a polar bear make my niece jump. She had her hand on the glass. Like, I don't know. Those things are cool. That's more important to me than like, I gotta slam out this new game, bro. You know. Now I'm making time for new games because I do want to make sure that I play them. You know, like I completed, you know, Ratchet and Returnal and Horizon and God of War and Elden Ring. I played, you know, over 100-something hours, and I beat Phantom Liberty. I wish I would have beat the campaign in Hogwarts. It looked like it got really good, but I just got busy. My wife beat that one. She completed that one, so I kind of got to see it sitting next to her. I was playing other games at the time, so I just, to me, if it's a good experience, you know, I'll carve out the time, kind of play it episodically as best I can, and get those completes when I can. But I'm never going to circle back on a game and be like, yo, I got to get that platinum. I don't think I've ever once done that in a game. I don't know if there's ever been a game where I've even considered it. IGN dropped a video, Spider-Man 2's breaking sales records. Yeah, a lot of that stuff hit yesterday, like fastest selling PlayStation Studios game. Yeah. What game took you the longest to beat? What game took me the longest to beat? That's a difficult one because I remember I came back to AC Origins and made myself complete it. That one probably would be like the longest because of like the number of hours. Oh, dude, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. You beat Returnal. I almost have 20 hours and can't beat the first boss. I would watch some videos on system. There's some basic tips for Returnal that can really, really help. I want to do a second run through because you get more story on the second run through. I think you'll naturally get platinum in Spider-Man 2. I'm going to intentionally avoid it. Unless you just refuse to level up all the gadgets or something. I wonder what ending Lono got in Phantom Liberty. No spoilers. No spoilers. You guys know this. This is not a spoiler. You can choose who to betray, and I betrayed Idris. I betrayed his character. So that's not a spoiler. We all knew that going into it. You were going to have to choose who to betray at the end. So I didn't side with him. And I liked the ending that I got. I thought it was good. It was a little drawn out. It felt like I was watching, you know, the ending of The Lord of the Rings. It felt like there was like 4 endings. I was like, oh, that was great. I rolled credits. I was like, oh, it's not over. And I was like, okay. I went and did this thing. I was like, okay, cool. That was a good ending. Really rounded out, you know, the storyline with that character. Oh, wait. Oh, hey, hang on. There's another character I have to talk to. And then we really rolled credits on it. It was cool, though. They really put a lot of work into that. I liked it. I liked how much effort they put into the story and the dialogue. Yeah. Abe, shut up. I just did that last night, Dave. No spoilers. We know that the symbiote suit is in Spider-Man 2, so that's not a spoiler. I just got it last night. Yeah. Yep. So. And when one day I can talk about that game without fear of spoilers, I'll have some criticisms for that part. I have some criticisms. Flat won't happen naturally. You got to look at the trophy list. Yeah. I was surprised that the Phantom Liberty ending was an actual ending. I was expecting some sort of everything back to status quo. I thought the same thing, Zuby. I was like, okay. I was like, that's like an ending. It wasn't like, you can now do whatever you want in the world. I was like, nah, yeah, that's the ending. That's it. See ya. I'm assuming you can go back in and play still. You're not like closed out from the game, but the ending was like an ending. So, guys, in 5 minutes, we're going to go to a premiere about Assassin's Creed Red. There's new details that I think are both exciting and concerning. Do me a favor, help us get 300 likes on this video. It's always a little bit of a lighter turnout when we do a self-indulgent topic. I wanted to talk about this. I thought this looked really cool, so I kind of knew this wasn't going to be like some big, massive stream. But you guys can really help. This video can do great in the coming weeks because people are going to take an interest in this and they want to know more. And I think we've got a really, really good opening monologue. It's really informative about what Squadron 42 is. So smash that like button. Totally free to do that. You could push this to 50 and I'll owe you more members. Currently, I owe you 5 members. I'll do that in the premiere. We do that to give you guys the maximum amount of time to hit it. So these are the best days to go crazy with gifted members. I know some of you have dialed back from gifting because we were getting a lot of hate and we were getting a lot of hate watchers. That has died down to a certain degree. We're still managing it. We're walking people to the door when we find out, hey, we don't want these people in here. So these are really good days to go crazy, to push that number. We hit 2,500 members last week. We're at 2,300 right now. 2,750 is the next milestone for Community Game Night, but you guys did get Fright Night. So 2,500, and you scrambled and did it quickly. So I'm going to give you 2 scary streams instead of just one. We're going to do one this week. We'll do Alan Wake on Friday night. And then the following week, I'll do like a scary VR game with Madam in the room. That'll make it funnier. We could have done it this last week, but my sister-in-law was in town. So it'll be funnier for me to play a game like that with her in the room with me. So I'm going to get you guys a link and get ready to shift gears to that premiere. I forget which game, but you can take a boat off the stand and the game actually ends the cutscene and all. There's a spot in Phantom Liberty that they said that you can be like, no, I'm not interested, and it just ends right there. They're like, okay, cool, you don't want to do the mission, and it's like, it's just over. I had to buy Phantom Liberty. Phantom Liberty was really, really good. Phantom Liberty pretty much made it impossible for me to go back. I was starting to enjoy Starfield, and then I played Phantom Liberty, and I was like, yeah, I can't go back. So, if you're enjoying Starfield, I wouldn't leave it. I would stay there and just keep having a ball with it. Because I know there's people that are having a ball with it. Keep playing. Do not go play Phantom Liberty. I would save Phantom Liberty when you're like, all right, I've gotten 150, however many hours, right? However many hours you end up getting out of Starfield. Once you feel like you're kind of done, then I would go play Phantom Liberty. That would be my recommendation. Okay. Let me get this ready. Oops, I clicked the wrong thing. Here we go. Okay. A lot of people are calling Assassin's Creed Red AC Red. So we've got that in the description. It's like Assassin's Creed Red, new details are both worrying and exciting. Let's do this. And then I've got a link for you guys. It's in the chat. Do me a favor, man. Smash the like button on the way out. 21 more likes will get us to 300. And then when this stream ends, it's going to take you over to this Assassin's Creed video. I'm going to gift members when we get over there. And then we'll all hang out in the members only debrief after the video. So thanks so much for being here today. I'm going to send you guys over to this video about Assassin's Creed Red. So everybody go over there and click the like button when you get over there. And I think the new information is more exciting than worrisome. Let's go check it out.